Have you ever felt like someone was slowly pulling pieces of you away, but you couldn't explain how? Like every time you left a conversation with them, something inside you felt just a little bit smaller, a little bit dimmer. It wasn't what they said. It was what you felt when they said it, that strange heaviness that lingered long after they were gone. You tell yourself you're overthinking it, that maybe you're just tired, maybe you're too sensitive, but deep down you know something's off. You can sense it, because some people don't take from your wallet. They take from your soul. They do it quietly, gently, with words that sound like care, with gestures that seem harmless. They ask you for small things, just a favor, a little of your time, your understanding, your silence. And at first, it feels kind. You feel needed. You feel like you're being a good person. But what if I told you that's exactly how they find their way in? Not through force, but through your kindness. They learn what kind of heart you have. They study the way you give, how easily you say yes, how afraid you are to disappoint. They don't attack your strength. They feed on your goodness. And before you realize it, you're exhausted. Not because of what you've done, but because of who you've done it for. You start to notice that you're showing up for people who wouldn't even notice if you stopped. You find yourself explaining your worth, defending your boundaries, justifying your silence. You keep giving chances, because you believe that's what good people do. But listen, being good doesn't mean being consumed. There's a difference between helping someone grow and allowing them to drain you. There's a psychology behind this kind of interaction. Every relationship is an exchange of energy. Some leave you full, others leave you hollow. When you spend too much time with people who only take, you start to internalize the idea that giving more is the only way to be loved. You start believing that if you just do one more thing, say yes one more time, they'll finally see your value. But they won't, because for people like this, your value isn't in who you are. It's in what they can extract from you. The human mind is wired to seek balance. We crave reciprocity. When someone gives, we naturally want to give back. That's how connection works. But takers exploit that instinct. They create emotional debts you can never repay. They manipulate your empathy, turning it into a leash. They make you responsible for their feelings, their moods, their mistakes. They say things like, "I thought you understood me," or "You're the only one I can count on." And you start to believe that helping them is part of who you are, but it's not. It's what they trained you to believe. If you've ever felt guilty for saying no or anxious when you set a boundary, it's because you were taught to associate peace with sacrifice. But peace doesn't come from overextending yourself. It comes from protecting your energy. It comes from recognizing when something is draining you and having the courage to step back, even if it makes you look selfish. Because the truth is, people who truly love you will never ask you to betray yourself just to keep them comfortable. So if you're listening to this and feeling a pull in your chest, that's not weakness. That's awareness. It's your intuition trying to wake you up. It's whispering that something's not right, that your energy matters more than your approval, that your peace is not negotiable. You don't have to prove your loyalty by suffering quietly. You don't have to keep shrinking to make space for others. The moment you realize that your energy is sacred, everything changes. You stop explaining yourself to people who only listen to respond. You stop rescuing those who refuse to swim. You stop saying yes when your soul is screaming no, and something powerful happens. You begin to feel lighter. You start attracting people who give back, who pour into you the same way you pour into them. You start to understand what real connection feels like. Not obligation, not control, just balance. Because the truth is, not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some people only show up to take, and it's not your job to keep them fed. It's your job to protect your light, to stand guard over the parts of you that make you feel alive, to understand that sometimes walking away isn't cruelty, it's clarity. You can love someone deeply and still know they don't belong in your life. You can forgive someone fully and still refuse to hand them another piece of your peace, because your energy is the most valuable thing you own, and not everyone who asks for it deserves to have it. They'll come to you with stories that sound like wounds, and you'll feel the ache in their voice. You'll want to help, you'll want to fix, because that's who you are. You see pain, and you move toward it. But not everyone who cries for help actually wants to heal. Some people cling to their pain because it gives them power. They wear it like armor. And when you try to take it off, they fight you. They say they want peace, but what they really want is control. They use their sadness to manipulate your empathy. And the more you try to heal them, the more they drain you. It starts slowly. They lean on you for comfort, for advice, for understanding. You give it freely, thinking it's love. But over time you realize they don't want solutions. They want sympathy. They want someone to sit in their misery with them, to validate their story of being the victim. And if you try to pull away, they make you feel guilty. They remind you of all the times you promised to be there. They turn your kindness into a trap. You start walking on eggshells, afraid that setting a boundary will make you the bad one. But listen carefully. Helping someone doesn't mean losing yourself in the process. Real love doesn't require you to abandon your peace. This is where most people break. They think compassion means tolerance, that forgiveness means staying. But compassion without boundaries destroys you. You can care deeply and still walk away. You can love someone and still protect your soul. Because when someone asks you to fix them, they're really asking you to take responsibility for their choices. They want you to carry their pain so they don't have to face it. And that's not love, that's emotional dependency. That's how your energy becomes their medicine. You can't heal someone who refuses to look in the mirror. You can't drag someone toward the light if they keep running back into the dark. Healing requires willingness, and willingness cannot be borrowed. You can guide, but you cannot walk their path. You can support, but you cannot save. The moment you start carrying someone else's emotional weight, you lose your balance. You start confusing guilt with love. You start believing that if you stop helping, you'll become heartless. But the truth is, your heart is not meant to bleed endlessly. It's meant to beat, to give life, to stay strong enough to love again, without resentment. There's a reason you feel tired around certain people. It's your body recognizing emotional danger before your mind does. Your intuition always knows when something isn't right. That tension in your chest, that restlessness after certain conversations, that's not anxiety, that's awareness. It's your soul whispering, this isn't your burden to carry. You've just been taught to ignore it, to be nice, to be understanding, to keep giving even when it hurts. But at some point, you must ask yourself, when did being kind start meaning destroying yourself quietly? You were not born to fix everyone. You were born to awaken yourself. Every time you save someone who refuses to grow, you delay your own growth. Every time you silence your pain to protect someone else's comfort, you betray your truth. And every time you carry a weight that isn't yours, you lose the strength to lift your own dreams. The moment you decide to stop fixing others, you begin to heal yourself. You start reclaiming your time, your focus, your peace. You begin to see that protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's sacred. You have to learn to love without losing yourself, to help without being used, to give without emptying your soul, because the people who truly value you will never ask you to destroy yourself for their comfort. They'll meet you halfway. They'll do the work. They'll rise with you. And when you walk away from those who refuse to heal, you are not abandoning them. You're freeing both of you. You're allowing life to teach them what you cannot. So take your energy back. Every part of it. Stop giving your light to people who thrive in your shadow. Stop explaining your boundaries to those who benefit from crossing them. The truth is, your peace is priceless, and not everyone deserves access to it. You are not cold for protecting yourself. You are wise. You are awakening. Because sometimes the most powerful form of love is letting go. They will test your love in ways that don't look like tests. They'll say, if you really care, prove it. And before you even realize what's happening, you start doing things just to keep their approval alive. You start performing love instead of feeling it. You bend your boundaries to show them you're loyal. You say yes when every part of you wants to say no. And you tell yourself it's temporary, that they'll eventually see your heart. But they never do, because people who make you prove your worth already decided you're not enough. The test was never meant to be passed. It was designed to keep you small. This is how manipulation hides in plain sight. It doesn't always come in anger or control. It comes disguised as emotional need. They make you earn something that should already be freely given. Trust, respect, affection. And the more you give, the more they demand. You start losing yourself in the process, confusing sacrifice with love. But real love doesn't make you jump through hoops. It doesn't dangle acceptance like a prize. When someone truly values you, your presence is enough. You don't have to convince them. You don't have to shrink yourself to fit their idea of who you should be. They'll tell you to change, subtly at first. Maybe they'll say they like you better when you're quieter. or that you're too emotional, too sensitive, too much. They'll make you doubt your natural self. And slowly, you begin to edit your personality to keep the peace. You soften your opinions, you mute your light, you start living like a version of yourself that doesn't exist, and you convince yourself it's love because you're trying so hard to make it work. But love that costs your authenticity isn't love, it's control. It's a slow erasure of your identity. Every time you adjust yourself for approval, you teach your subconscious that who you are isn't acceptable, that you must perform to be loved, and that belief follows you everywhere. Into new friendships, relationships, even how you talk to yourself. You start apologizing for existing. You overthink every word. You fear losing people more than losing your peace. That's not connection, that's emotional imprisonment. And the moment you realize it, everything inside you starts to awaken. You begin to see that the people who truly belong in your life will never ask you to prove, to perform, or to change. They will love you as you grow. Not only when you comply. It's time to stop apologizing for being who you are. The world needs your full presence, not the watered-down version someone else molded. There's power in being unapologetically you. It scares people who can't control you, but it frees those who were meant to walk beside you. You don't need to prove your loyalty by staying in places that make you feel small. You don't need to dim your fire just because it makes someone else uncomfortable. If your light is too bright for them, let them shade their eyes. Your purpose was never to make others comfortable. It was to evolve, to expand, to live fully. Every time you reclaim a part of yourself that you once hid, you take back power from every person who tried to shape you. That's what true healing is. It's remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It's standing tall in your truth, even when your voice shakes. It's choosing self-respect over approval every single time, because the ones who truly care for you will never be threatened by your authenticity. They'll be inspired by it. You don't owe anyone a smaller version of yourself just to keep their love. You owe yourself the freedom to be everything you are. Stop waiting for someone to validate your worth. Stop explaining your choices to people committed to misunderstanding you. The only permission you need is your own, and once you give yourself that, everything changes. You become untouchable, not because you're cold, but because you're clear. You no longer seek love through sacrifice. You no longer confuse manipulation with care. You stop chasing what was never real, and in that stillness, you rediscover something powerful, peace, the kind that doesn't depend on anyone's approval, the kind that stays even when people leave, the kind that comes from finally choosing yourself fully and without hesitation. That's not selfishness, that's liberation. And that's where your real life begins. Then comes the most dangerous request of all, the one that sounds gentle, almost kind. Can we just forget what happened? Those 6 words are poison wrapped in peace, because what they're really saying is, can you erase your pain so I don't have to face what I did? They want you to silence your truth for the sake of their comfort. They want forgiveness without accountability, healing without honesty, closure without consequence. And if you agree, if you bury what hurt you just to keep the connection alive, you don't heal, you disappear. This is how people lose themselves. Not in one big moment, but in small, quiet compromises. They stop speaking up. They pretend things didn't happen. They convince themselves it's better to move on than to stir up more conflict. But the truth is, you can't heal what you refuse to acknowledge. When you suppress pain, it doesn't vanish, it festers. It turns into resentment, anxiety, self-doubt. It eats away at your peace from the inside out. And that's exactly what manipulators count on. They know that if they can make you question your right to feel hurt, they've already won. Gaslighting doesn't always sound cruel. Sometimes it sounds like calm, like let's not dwell on the past, like you're overreacting, like it wasn't that bad. It's a slow rewriting of your reality, one that leaves you doubting your own memory. You start to wonder if maybe they're right. Maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe you did misunderstand. But deep down, a part of you still remembers. It remembers the tone, the look, the sting, the moment you felt small and powerless. That memory is truth. Don't let anyone convince you to delete it just because it makes them uncomfortable. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is freedom, but only when it's chosen from strength, not fear. You can forgive someone and still hold them accountable. You can let go of anger without erasing what happened. True healing doesn't mean pretending it never hurt. It means owning the lesson, not the pain. It means saying, I remember everything, and I still choose peace. Because peace built on denial isn't peace, it's paralysis, and you deserve more than that. Some people will ask you to forget because they fear who you'll become once you remember, because remembering gives you power. It reconnects you to your boundaries, your standards, your truth. It makes you stronger than the version of you they could control. That's why awareness is dangerous to those who manipulate. It breaks the spell. When you finally see their patterns clearly, you stop playing the role they wrote for you. You stop apologizing for your feelings. You stop carrying their guilt as if it's your own. You rise. But rising means losing things. It means walking away from people who still live in denial. It means breaking patterns that once felt like love. It means standing alone for a while, rebuilding your sense of self piece by piece. But what comes after that, what waits on the other side, is peace. Real peace. The kind that isn't dependent on anyone's approval. The kind that feels like coming home to yourself after being lost for years. So if someone ever asks you to forget, don't. Remember. Remember every time you silenced yourself to keep the peace. Every time you tolerated what broke you just to avoid being alone. Every time you ignored your intuition because you didn't want to believe it. Remember. And then rise above it, because awareness is power. Truth is protection. And your boundaries are not walls, they are gates that decide what gets to enter your soul. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe anyone your forgetfulness. The people who truly care about you won't ask you to erase your story. They'll help you rewrite it with honesty and growth. You have every right to remember, to heal, to speak, to walk away. Because the moment you choose your truth over their comfort, you take your power back. And when you stand in that truth, something incredible happens. The people who once tried to control your light can no longer touch you. You become untouchable, not because you've hardened, but because you've healed. There comes a point when you have to stop waiting for people to understand you and start understanding yourself. Because some people aren't confused, they just benefit from your confusion. They thrive when you question your worth. They stay comfortable when you stay small, but you weren't born to live in emotional debt, constantly paying for the peace of others. You were born to rise above it, to protect your energy, your truth, your sacred space. The longer you stay around people who drain you, the more you begin to believe that exhaustion is normal. But it's not. That heaviness you feel every time you walk away from certain people is not love. It's your soul telling you it's time to let go. It's hard, isn't it? Walking away from people you once cared about. The guilt tries to pull you back. The memories whisper, maybe they'll change, but here's the truth. Most people don't change when you keep rescuing them. They change when you stop. Because when you finally withdraw your energy, they lose the supply they depended on. And in that moment, they're forced to face themselves. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You don't need to justify your silence. Walking away doesn't make you heartless. It makes you whole again. You see, your soul has a language. It speaks through discomfort. It tells you when something's off, when your spirit is being suffocated, when your light is dimming. But too often you ignore it because you don't want to lose people. You think peace means keeping everyone happy. But peace doesn't mean avoidance. It means alignment. It means standing so firmly in your truth that anyone who doesn't respect it naturally falls away. That's not loss. That's divine filtration. The universe removes what no longer matches your frequency so that you can rise. There's power in quiet detachment. When you stop reacting, when you stop explaining, when you stop proving, you become a mirror. The people who once manipulated your emotions lose their power because you've stopped feeding the cycle. Silence isn't weakness. It's strength in its purest form. It's the moment your energy stops leaking into the wrong places. It's where healing begins. When you stop needing closure from those who hurt you, you take back control of your narrative. You realize you never needed their apology to move forward. You just needed your own permission. Most people never reach that point because they're addicted to familiarity. Even pain can feel safe when it's what you've always known. You tell yourself you'll leave when it gets better, but the truth is, it won't get better until you leave. The longer you stay in places that drain you, the louder the silence of your own life becomes. You start missing yourself. your laughter, your spark, your peace. That's the cost of staying too long in spaces not meant for you. And once you realize that, something inside you shifts forever. The moment you choose yourself, the world starts to shift with you. You begin to attract people who don't compete with your peace, they protect it. Conversations start feeling lighter, your heart beats calmer, you wake up without the weight of constant anxiety. That's not coincidence, that's alignment, because the universe always rewards self-respect. When you stop chasing what hurts you, what's meant for you finds its way in. So this is your reminder. You owe no one an explanation for your healing. You owe no one a seat at your table just because they once sat there. You are allowed to evolve, to outgrow, to walk away. You are allowed to choose peace over chaos, even if it confuses others. The people who truly love you will understand. The ones who don't were never meant to stay. And when you finally make that choice, when you step away from the noise and into your own stillness, you'll feel something powerful. Freedom. The kind that doesn't come from running, but from returning. Returning to yourself, to your truth, to your peace. You'll realize that protecting your energy wasn't selfish. It was sacred. It was the most loving thing you could have ever done for yourself. Because the moment you stop fighting for people who were never fighting for you, life begins to fight for you. And that's when everything changes.